You're listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough, but if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching, creating, and aligning with the person you feel called to be, and creating greater calm, clarity, and confidence in your life, as well as room for pleasure and expansion. Through amazing stories, conversations, and offerings, this podcast is here to inspire and support you. Get ready to release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our consciousness and vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Becoming More Me. Today, I have a special guest, Sarah Dalton, here with me, and we are going to be talking a lot about two things that I definitely value and know that she does too: peace and productivity. It's actually the name of her podcast also, which I had the pleasure of being a guest on. I think we determined it was this spring, although it feels like 10 years ago as we're catching up. And she's just released a new planner this year. She's got all sorts of awesome things going on. And I know that she is going to have some tips that you guys are just going to eat up and love because, you know, we love anything that helps us have that inner peace and calm and also be productive and check those boxes that somehow serve our ego and make us feel so good at the end of the day. So welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to catch up with you and chat.
Yeah. I loved our chat when I was on your show, and I know we're going to have some fun things to talk about today. So I love it if you could just start by filling in listeners a little bit on who you are outside of, peace and productivity and work, but like who you are. Tell us about your family, where you live, your hobbies, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I am a mom. I'm in the Midwest. I actually moved back to where I grew up after being gone for, 20 plus years. I actually, right out of college, I was a flight attendant, which is something that I don't talk about very often.
Oh, cool.
And my husband, I met him, he's a pilot. So that's how we met, and we were kind of going all over the place. And when we wanted to, kind of settle down and start our family. Well, actually, I have two stepsons as well, so I'm a stepmom is another piece of my story. We ended up moving back to the Midwest because for me, that is just, well, first of all, I love the seasons. I love fall. I love, the change and all of that. So, but there's something about the good old Midwest values for me. So raising our kids, I have now, he's 11 and a 9-year-old. So, I mean, that pretty much keeps us busy. And as you know, with 4, I mean, 2, when I hear more than 2, I'm like, wow, that's impressive.
And I also like to point out that any mom, whether you've got one kid, pregnant with your first one, even 100%. Or whatever, it's a challenge.
Yeah. Yes.
You have 1 or 10.
Yes. And we also have a golden doodle, which she is our pride and joy. And it's so cute because our kids I just feel like it's I don't know, I love that it's part of their story growing up because they're always mentioning, they're always talking about, what would we do without her? And we love her so much. We're so happy we have her. Oh. So that's a big part of our, our family unit.
How old is your golden doodle?
Good question. 4. She just turned 4, which is I don't want her to age either.
And what's her name?
I'm Ginger.
Ginger.
Oh. Yes. She's adorable. She's so fun. And I work from home, so she's not here right now. She might be knocking on the door in a minute, but she keeps me company, And so
believe me, I know. I've got one down here. My puppy yellow labs down there. I can see a puppy 2 this fall, and then our old man's laying on my chaise lounge on the other side of my office.
Yeah, so you get it. Yeah, it's so fun. I love it.
It's a little easier when the kids are at school because I can just leave my office door open and they can come and go as they please. puppies.
Right.
When I actually have to
Yeah.
shut the door, Lord forbid I shut one of them out because they will
Yeah.
let me know. And like you said, let me
Like
knock on
in and
the door.
out. Yeah.
Let me in, mom.
Totally.
That's
Totally.
awesome. I love that it's part of my kids' story too. They really
Yeah.
love having the dogs, and I've seen
Yeah.
the dogs help them through difficult times.
Yes.
They did a better job than I did, and
Mhm.
and a lot of other things, and just so much
Yeah,
joy. Like for
for
us,
sure.
our bus stop for our kids is right at the corner of our property, and
Hmm.
so I go out there in the morning, and the little one that likes running after the ball is thrilled that there's at least two bus stops in the morning that he gets to go outside
Yes.
and have me throw the ball to him, and we just
Hmm.
play with the dogs while we wait for the buses, and same thing in the afternoons. So
Love it.
I do too.
That's so cool.
What
Yeah.
are some of your hobbies? What do you like to do when you're not working,
So,
playing with the puppy or whatever?
yeah, it's funny. I feel like that's a hard question, honestly, with
I
the
do
season
too.
of
I get
life
it.
that I'm in. I'm like, well, good question. I should probably figure that out. But I will say for me, I am recently getting into what I grew up playing sports, and I'm a pretty competitive person. So I feel like, as just kind of naturally doing less and less of that. Like I'll work out or do, take the walks and things like that. But I'm realizing I just recently got started getting into pickleball,
Oh,
which is like a big thing that's like taking over the country
oh
apparently,
yeah.
but it's so fun. Have you ever played it?
Yeah, we got the courts in our neighborhood a couple of years ago, and I had never heard
So
of it.
fun.
And in
Me
my
either.
previous business, one of the women I worked closely with, her husband was like one of like the US champions or
Oh,
whatever.
wow. Cool.
Like, what?
I didn't even know there was.
Now it's
Yeah.
like
Like,
everywhere. So,
yes. Yes. No, it's so fun. And it kind of fills that square for me that need like a little bit of that competitiveness. And my husband's the same. Like, but the cool thing is we can also play as a family. Like I can just play with my girlfriends or with my husband, or we could play with the kids. So as of
versatile.
yes, yes. So, and also we just found some indoor courts. So for when the winter, because it's coming where we are, I mean, sooner than later,
Yeah.
I'll be able to play inside and
They're
they'll be able
popping
to
up
play inside.
everywhere.
I
You
know.
noticed at our mall, unfortunately, the Nordstroms went out of business and they took over
Hmm.
part of the interior of the old Nordstroms with pickleball
Oh
court.
my gosh, interesting.
So
Okay.
I mean, I'd rather have Nordstrom
I
any
know.
day.
I'm like,
But
I want
it's like
both though. Can I have
that's a
both?
resourceful idea for a large indoor open space.
That's funny. That's funny. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where it's at. Like, I'll be honest, I don't, the idea, and then I honestly love watching like a good show. I'm a homebody and just kind of like hanging out at home, watching a movie,
Do you have any
watching
favorite
a
shows? I'm always looking for recommendations and I'm like hard to please.
so yeah, well, I have my personal ones where I love, the Real Housewives, which is just like so
Guilty
I
pleasures. Don't want to
guilty
admit I
pleasure.
like it.
I like hate to admit it, but it's just is what it is. That's like my folding laundry show. And then with my husband, we're actually getting into Yellowstone. We watched This Is Us.
Oh, I love This Is
Um,
Us. I miss This Is Us.
I do too. I do too. So things along those lines, I
Have
really
you watched Ted Lasso?
no.
Ooh, do it.
Should I? I
Yeah.
mean, it's
It's worth
weird
I
because
don't know if you have an Apple TV subscription or not, but like it's
I feel
worth
like
it.
we have everything. We're just
Get it.
like, do we need everything? But we have pretty
I
much.
pause for like literally
I don't
nothing for the
know.
television unless it's like really it really
Yeah,
gets me.
really good.
And
Okay.
yeah, no, believe me, Ted Lasso I liked enough that a quote from it is in my book that's coming out this fall.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll have to check it
really,
out.
really
I mean,
good.
I've heard good things.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'll definitely have to
there's a
check
little
it
plug
out.
for Ted. But
That's funny.
so anyway,
Yeah.
I want to hear a bit about business too, obviously. You're the founder of Your Simply Big Life.
Mhm.
And can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what you do through your business?
Yes. So ultimately, I feel like the whole community and the business over the last really 5 years came from a place of me as a new mom, just feeling that overwhelm and feeling that frustration and looking at just feeling like I wasn't doing anything or I wasn't doing all the things I was supposed to be doing, or I wasn't doing anything how I was supposed to be doing it, just feeling like I was off in some way.
Yeah.
Even back then, social media and the comparison, that wasn't even quite a thing as what it is now, but it's almost just within myself, like my expectations of what I thought motherhood was going to be and what I expected of myself. So I was going to, try to check off all the boxes every day.
Right.
And I was just getting to a point and going to all the different planners and all the things outside of myself. Like, what can I do to figure this out? And it was just like, just always a little bit out of my grasp. And
Yeah.
then
I
I
totally
felt that burnout, right?
Yeah, it's like it says slay the day on the cover of this planner. So like, why am I not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
This
that
is
kind of a
not like
thing.
the magic, but like I got the planner, I should be fixed. Like,
Exactly. I always kind of figured I was like one planner away or
yeah.
one
Yeah.
certification away or one
Right.
audiobook away from like figuring it all out and somehow not having pain and challenge anymore.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I feel like it was a slow shift and so much shift for me and realizing, I mean, I hired my own, like a life coach, just starting to do more of my inner personal work.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I feel like I came into motherhood very unclear on who I was, what I wanted in the first place. And I was kind of searching. So then to be thrown into motherhood and also into right away, it was a step motherhood, right? Like, so I had kind of, it was a lot all at once. And that was another piece of that overwhelm that I was like always trying to catch up. So it was, of course, as it is, it's still unfolding, but it was a slow journey to start to shift the way I was looking at getting things done or managing the house, my relationships, like all of the things that I was doing. Um, and I did realize then, I think your Simply Big Life came out of just my wanting to connect with moms and other women to have conversations and to share what's working and what we're struggling with. And, and that's the beauty. That's why I love podcasting. That's why I think social media can be used for good if we're intentional with,
Absolutely.
right? Like all of these different ways to connect. And I think that's what I was craving and that time in that season. And so that's what I kind of almost like I didn't. It's interesting when I think back on my story now, didn't necessarily set out to have a business. I didn't set out
Sure.
to create this whole thing, but it slowly evolved
You had a
into
need and you figured out how
exactly,
to take care of that. And I think
exactly.
like the more we all embrace that, like
Yeah.
in my case, that I need nervous system regulation and hypnotherapy and all those kind of things as much, if not more, than most of the people I work with. Like
Mm-hmm.
I needed those things, so I embrace them fully, and they bring out my humanness and they allow me to, function better on a day-to-day basis. And no different with like the planning and the productivity. you
Yeah.
know we usually create our own solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that you
Yeah,
did
I
that.
love that.
I love that you did that. And yeah, so how can we get both peace and productivity at the same time? Like, what's the secret there?
Yeah. I'll tell you the secret. No, the interesting thing is for me too, I think the other piece of getting to know me is that I am not your typical, in quotes, like planner and type A, like
Yeah.
one on the Enneagram, get things done. I appreciate all of those things. And at the same time, one of my core values, one of my top core values is freedom.
Me
And
too.
right. And I think as humans, honestly, if we're all honest with ourselves, just this idea of being free in whatever we're doing and however we want to express ourselves. That's why I love the name of your podcast and everything that you do, because I feel like that's what life is, right? Is stepping into our truest version of ourselves, our version of success. That's why I struggle sometimes, honestly, with like traditional time management, traditional productivity, hustle, all of those things. Traditional meaning, typically what you're finding, or maybe even the more masculine take on it, because it's do it this way and you'll get this result.
Yeah.
Figure this out, and then you'll be, again, like fill out
Yeah.
this planner
Well, most of
perfectly.
most of the
right?
tools are created from that masculine perspective of like a
Yep.
24-hour cycle. And as
Yes, there's
women,
that
we
too.
have what, 28, 35, like somewhere in their day cycle.
Days.
And, and
Yes.
then on top of that, there's all the other cycles going on,
Literally.
seasons, and, all
Yep.
sorts of other things that we need to take into consideration. Like, not every day is intended to be a productive, slay the day kind of day.
Yeah. Well, and I think even just in that, it's like I get chills talking about it because I get so pumped up about it. I feel like the biggest thing there is when we're talking about peace and productivity, it's shifting our definition of productivity.
Mm.
What is productive? Because if for me, kind of the goal and the whole point of why we want to have productive days and to be productive is so that we're moving the needle towards our goals, our vision, and literally who we're becoming. So we're
Oh, yeah.
moving that needle a little bit more. And on some days, to your point, the most productive thing you can do is freaking rest.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, and I don't say that to be because it's like, oh, people are saying that now. It's like
It's the truth.
legitimately. It's as busy moms, as women, just as humans, embracing our season, our capacity, season meaning literally the season, how old our kids are, what are your circumstances currently? What are you dealing with?
The things we're
What
even holding space for.
holding
I
space?
know that for me, in the midst right now, as we're talking of finishing up my book, of getting my
Mm,
firstborn off to college, getting my other
yes.
kids off to school, I had said to my coach who I work with for, business and sales and everything, honestly, like he covers the gamut for me. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
I just don't know what August is going to be like business wise. I'm like, I think I really just need to focus on my family and my book and just not give a crap if I, sell a thing, move the needle on like the financial scale of things. I just need to be and
Mm,
realize that it's going to figure itself out in September. And it already
yes.
is. Like it already is. So, but that was the hardest thing for me. Like I will just be absolutely honest that every week when I showed up at those meetings with him, I'm like, I'm not in sales mode. Nothing's moving.
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
the actual, like I
Right.
don't like this. This is uncomfortable. And that's exactly why I know I need to lean into it,
Yes. No,
but
and part of it is letting go of that, embracing the fear. You're right. I think a lot of it, it's staying in that zone of hustle and go and do and check the boxes because that's what we know. A lot of us, in a lot of ways, that's what we were taught. That's what we see. And the my question though is that working for you? Is that
no, I spent
really
a ton of
working?
years with pages full of checked boxes and zero satisfaction and fulfillment.
Yeah. And
So
peace, right? And
yeah,
that's what you're saying. That idea to me, there's the piece of my when I am my most peaceful and productive is when I am clear on what it is, like you said, in August, the clarity of this is not where I'm focusing. I am putting my energy, my time, my resources into this space. And so when you're doing that and you're showing up there, you can be at peace knowing there will be a time for that, for your sales and
mhm,
that this is not the time. So the
yes,
peace of knowing, and then you have a plan for that, because that's why I don't just have that, I want to hold space for both.
yep.
That's where I come from.
Yeah. And I always say like balance is a myth, but like integration is possible.
Integration.
We
Yeah.
can definitely integrate and make things work better that way. And you know what really changed things for me, Sarah, was when I realized that there's no such thing as being behind. Like we all
That's
spend
good.
this time feeling like, oh, well, I didn't get it done yesterday. Now I'm behind.
Mm-hmm.
Behind what? Like there was
Yeah.
this revelation one day for me where I'm like, I'm never ever behind. And
Yeah.
I can't go back to yesterday and do it
Mm-hmm.
now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so as soon as I released
Yeah.
that and could get present, and also like those days when you have that like really like kind of like chaotic, frenetic energy that I get sometimes as an ADHD entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm just like, there's no way that those things that I thought I might do today are
Yeah.
happening. And
Yes.
I'm better off taking a walk and grounding. Like
Absolutely.
this is going to make everything better. And
Yes.
honestly, to me, like my favorite saying at this point is just slow is the new fast,
Mm-hmm.
because our nervous system and all that just values that so much more than
Mm-hmm.
like the get it all done. So
Well,
I love your
yeah.
perspective on all of that.
No, that's such a good point. I feel like honestly, today I'm having like a really honestly like a tired day, like a low energy day, waking up, haven't been sleeping great, the last few nights, and just feeling so being able to honor that energy. And the reality is, I know that it is a blessing, and I'm coming from a perspective again where I have my own business, I work from home, I create my schedule, my to-do list, all of those things. So I will say, kind of coming from that lens, and in the same vein, no matter what your season, what your situation, just even shifting our mind that it is a good thing to honor, and it's a good thing to honor and to embrace where we're at currently. And yes, there's still things we need to get done. Yes, there's things we have to do in the day. Like, I will not, that's reality. And then what, on those maybe lower energy days, what can you possibly, again, like you said, take a walk, take a 5-minute pause, take a nap if you can. I mean, again, I don't know if that's realistic for some of the moms, but
Sure.
taking an honest look at your day, comparing it to your energy, right? Just getting so much of it is connecting back into ourselves and being honest with ourselves. And I
So
love what you
taking
said
care of
about,
your energy management
that's what it
above
is.
the tasks.
Yes, because it really should, in my mind, it should be that comes first. And then you can figure out, okay, this is the time I have. This is what I would like to accomplish. What does that look like, right? Because if you're showing up to something you said you're going to do, but you are exhausted and annoyed, what does that look like? No quality really is coming from that.
True. Absolutely true. Everybody can just let that one sink in this moment. So tell us a little bit about this awesome new planner that you've designed and launched this year, and how it can help us with our peace and productivity.
Yes, thank you so much. So honestly, the planner has been really kind of a 5-year journey as well, because it's one of the things that I sort of started with that got me in this whole snowball of creating the community around it and everything like that. Because like I said, so I do love planners. I love personal development. I love journaling and connecting back into the things that helped me, again, naming and knowing my core values, aligning my days, honoring my season and my energy. These are all things that I knew to be the most helpful game changers for me in my productivity and my peace and just my getting towards my vision and my goals. And I couldn't really find another tool out there that encompassed all of those things. So that is where the planner came from. And it really is putting those pieces and the peace and productivity method into a planner, where you're kind of guided through the flow, if you will. So the first step really is naming and define, align your core values, because
So
that's
let's
who
talk
we
about
are.
that for a second for anybody
Yeah,
that's not familiar with
do
that.
it.
Can you define what those are
Yeah.
to anyone that might not know, and also explain how knowing those core values can help with productivity?
Yes, yes. Okay, so this is one of my most favorite things to talk about, because it is it's kind of the foundation. And for me, they're just the fundamental principles, your core beliefs, the things that when you are clear on them, you then can design your days around that. So what is most important, and not the distinction I will say here is that most people, and me included in the beginning, I was like, well, I value family, health, faith. To me, those are our categories of our life, right? That's my view, and everybody's going to come from it. This is what I hold space for with everybody in this world. I'm like, we can all come from a different perspective, and that's the beauty of it, right? But when I talk about core values, it's digging deeper beyond that. So how do my personal core values, my integrity, my growth, my freedom, connection, authenticity, those are my top 5 core values. How does that impact my family? How I show up in my family? How does me aligning my actions, my habits, how I'm planning my days, how I'm spending my time, my morning routine, all of those things, and I'm showing up with freedom, with integrity, following through. For me, a lot of it, the integrity piece, and this is just a good example lately, it's with my movement and my workouts. If I and even creating a plan for the week, right? So if I say I want to do, work out for 20 minutes 3 times a week, if I'm setting that up as a goal or a practice that I want to get to, because I know that makes me feel good, that makes me energized, and I can right? Like I know that that's what I want. The more I can follow through and do what I said I'm going to do, right? That's my integrity, and that's me being the person aligning with my values, that I was created to be. So the more clarity we have on what our values are, then we can literally, when we create our goals, our vision, our plans, our habits and routines, we can, they're the filter. For me, they're the filter that I would run that through.
Yeah.
So it's like, it helps with the decision fatigue. Because if we try to
Right.
pull
Or
these
the
things out of thin
procrastination.
air, oh,
Because
100%.
we absolutely love to doubt that
Yeah.
the me I was yesterday had my best intentions in mind for today, so I'm going to do what she told me to do, kind of thing. And
Yes.
instead we decide that the me from today gets to run the show, and now I'm not doing the workout, or I'm not following through with
Mm-hmm.
this, or whatever else. So
Yeah.
yeah, when you can really get to that place of trusting that you had your best intentions in mind when you asked yourself to do those things, it can be a lot
Yes.
easier to do them.
Absolutely. And the other thing I'll say too is, personally, and this is why, again, I love your podcast and this, because we are always evolving. So a big thing for me in this season is setting myself up for success with my plans, because I will tend to, again, kind of, there's holding both. And that's where knowing our energy, knowing our season, what's our current capacity, what are we dealing with, and what actually makes sense for this week for my workouts. What actually can I say yes to
Sure.
when it comes to coffee with my friends or this or that? And because this is also what I need to get done and want to get done for work, right? So that's where we cannot do all the things. So when we sit down, whatever day we do, right, I highly recommend picking a day at a time to plan your week. And it doesn't have to be a crazy thing. It doesn't have to be this big thing, but just to get a picture of what that week is.
I preach the same thing. Yep.
Right?
And you have to actually put that on your plan, guys. Like,
Yes. Oh,
let's make
exactly.
that clear, because if
Plan
you
to
don't do
plan. When are
that,
you going to plan?
then
Yes.
it never happens.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think, like, I tend to overcomplicate things. I tend to overthink things, but letting it be simple, and especially if you're just starting off, really just letting it be just the basics of, like, what time do you have? What is your set schedule? And then what are the tasks? What makes sense for that day? And again, I feel like so much of this, for me, it's knowing that on Mondays, I typically have more energy than I do on Fridays.
Yeah.
So I'm setting my week up in a way that really supports my personal energy and my weekly flow for the most part, right? Like, there's obviously, life happens. And that's also why when you create a plan, you're creating some, hopefully you're adding in some white space, and you're leaving room for life to happen. Right?
Yes, white space. Everybody hear that? White space. It's so important.
So
Like,
important.
take it from somebody who used to like plan things out to the minute practically, and I was always felt quote unquote behind,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no way you can succeed when you're putting too much on your plate and
Yeah.
feel good about your day. At this
Yeah.
point, it's like I have like a list that I don't necessarily look at every day. I pull a few
Mm-hmm.
things off of it and put it on to the day,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel great when those get accomplished. And
Yeah.
then if I somehow have miraculous extra time, I know exactly where the
Right.
list is, where I can find more of the same thing, and I can, pile on a few more things that I feel like doing.
Exactly. Well, honestly, that is the other piece of the planner, and the kind of how and why I created the daily pages like I did. I feel like in the past, so this is my fifth version of the planner, and I've updated, it took advice from my community, like what did they like, what did they not like. So these daily pages there's more white space. Like, literally, it's not sometimes I think with certain planners, right, it's like you have your schedule, and then you have and then it's just like, literally then bubbles, like 20 bubbles of a task list, and on one day, right? to me, that is overwhelming. And I feel like our brains want to fill those things in. So we will just write all the things down. And then we're set up really to be disappointed for the most part, right?
Or we
Depending
just put
on the
like
day.
BS on there, like empty the
Exactly.
dishwasher
Something
for
we already
things
did
that
or
like
we
we're
know we're
already going to
doing.
do because it feels good to
Exactly.
check a box. But like, do we really need
Exactly.
that?
Yeah. And it's like if and I will say too, if that's your thing and that's working for you, awesome. At the same time, so the daily pages in the planner are set up. It's almost like create your own adventure. Like there are guides, there's gratitude, and then what are today's priorities? For me, sometimes it's literally one thing. Like on a slower and lower energy day,
Yeah.
it could just be this. And if I accomplish this amazing conversation with you, then I will feel productive. And like you said, I
That's
know
great.
where the other things are, where the things live, where my tasks live, and I can pull them in if necessary.
It's only been in like the last 100 years that we decided that the word priority
Yeah,
is going to have a plural.
it's true.
So,
It's true.
it doesn't have to
Yeah,
be a long list.
it doesn't have to be. And I feel like that also is energizing. The more it's like a muscle, the more we do accomplish the things, like I said, the more we do the things we say we're going to do, the more motivation we will have. We can't always rely on motivation for sure. So and it does, the more it's kind of filling that need of we're building trust in ourselves. I am somebody who does what I say I'm going to do, whether that's follow through and hang out with my husband or have a conversation with my kids or send the dang email, whatever it is, right? I put
It
it on my
creates new
priority. I'm going to do
habits.
it.
It rewires your
It
brain. It
rewires your
gets
brain.
you
Yeah,
showing up in your world in a whole new way when you can repeat those positive actions and follow through with the intentions.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Absolutely. Where can we get that planner? And what is it? What is it called? The Peace and Productivity Planner, or does it have
Yes.
a different name? Okay.
Yeah. The Peace and Productivity Planner. And you can just go to www.yoursimplybiglife.com/planner. So that's
I'll
nice
make
and
sure that's in the show
easy.
notes, guys. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. Awesome.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. And what are I know in your planner you talk about these seasonal audits and energy audits. What are those all about?
Yeah. So this is a kind of exactly what I was talking about with knowing and embracing your season. So in the planner, it kind of guides you through that process of once we have kind of a vision that we create the different categories too. So and I left it open. So for you, we're not all moms listening to this podcast. We're not all married, right? But whatever categories of your life, I feel like honestly, that's a difference that I see in other planners. It's less pigeonholing you into what you need to do and more leaving it open for your interpretation. So naming those categories, because then it really is helpful for kind of like you were talking about, like in this season, knowing what your circumstances are. So, currently in my season, the kids are back to school full time. So I have, again, the planners coming out. Obviously, I'm launching that. So this is more of a business focused season for me. And I look at season, again, it can be actual like summer, fall, there's the physical seasons, but then there's also just our life seasons.
Sure.
So it's on so many different levels and spectrums, but naming those categories and then really leaning into, okay, where am I at? What is my capacity? When you talk about then the energy, it's what are the things that are draining my energy? What are the things that are giving me energy? And literally, there's a place to write a list in those. And the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, just kind of giving yourself like thinking in each of those categories, because it's not just our physical energy, right? It's our mind, it's our heart, it's our spirit, just because they all connect and play together, as I know right? That's so important to pay attention to the whole person. And again, I feel like that's what kind of sets the whole method and the process apart, because it's not just doing the thing, it's also feeling good while we're doing it and having the energy to show up. So it takes you through that whole process. And because the more awareness we have around something, our energy, our season, again, then we can set our months, weeks, and days up to support that.
Yeah. So I know your community has a lot of moms in it,
Mhm.
and we're heading into the fall here. Are there any particular tips that you find are specifically helpful for moms in getting through the fall and the early winter with productivity in mind?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think the biggest thing is it's going to be super important, and we all talk about this, but having, first of all, your like the morning routine. I feel like starting there and really just there's the three like morning, afternoon, and evening routines.
Yeah,
So,
I was
but
gonna say if your morning routine is already set up and you're having problems, you've got to
yeah,
go to the evening routine and see where the issues
exactly.
are forming.
Exactly. But it's to me, I'm realizing and honestly, for me personally, so I feel like that's the place to start. So and it's to me creating rhythms and routines, it's kind of that same structure is seeing, okay, what's happening right now that's not working, but also what's happening right now, maybe that is working, that you want to keep in the mix, right? And so again, having that awareness and then seeing, okay, it's really the routine is right, just stacking the habits. It's what the habits that you do on top of each other that create the flow and the routine. So it all does come back to those little tiny habits. So as far as you can do, like breaking it down and realizing, okay, what's like the one habit that I can work on, right, for the morning. And I guess we can, yeah, and we can figure out again, whatever it is for you. I feel like honestly, I'm struggling personally with the afternoon routine currently. And I
Yeah, I
will
can
say
relate
the
to that.
other, right? I mean, there's something about, especially because that's when I have my lowest energy personally. So I've done my workout. I'm like, and then the kids come home at like 3:34 and I'm kind of mentally spent already. So first and foremost, I feel like as moms, what can we do to support our personal energy and to re energize at that point in the day? Right. It could literally be, I mean, tapping, meditation, right? Anything like for me, it's helpful to
Tapping's
go
a great
get
like
outside.
3-minute thing to do before you know your
Yeah.
kids are getting off the bus or you're going through that carpool
A
line
lot
or
of time,
whatever
that's what
else
we
to just
need. Right.
lift your energy a little bit and to like
I
release the
love that.
day or the day by yourself doing whatever you were doing and get into mom
The
mode again.
transition, exactly. I feel like the transitions are probably maybe the biggest, if a tip, right? Like the biggest thing
Yeah.
if you're thinking about intentionally transitioning, even
Yep.
intentionally transitioning from, okay, I got the kids off to school. Now I'm transitioning into to go to work or into work mode or home mode, right? Whatever you're focusing on that day. And then so shifting in and out of things, that's a great point. I feel like
Yeah.
that's what starts what is that domino that starts our routines that are
When you
supporting our
get the
energy.
transitions down, then like you're so much more resilient for the
Yes,
day
that's
and you allow
right.
the flow to happen instead of the
Hmm.
resistance that we tend to meet those transitions with. Oh, but I
It's
just
so
got into a
true.
flow with work and now my kids are getting home and I don't want to do the
Yes.
mom stuff now. I want to do the work stuff. And
Oh my
oh,
gosh, been
now my
there.
kids are going to bed and I wish I had more time with them to do the fun things.
Right.
We're always trying to be somewhere that we're not
Mhm.
and forgetting that the only place we have any power is like present moment. So
Yeah. And that's such a good point. I feel like the flow state is also something that I've been very interested in because I literally started in my notes app, started keeping like flow state and like making notes of when I feel that.
mhm.
Because it's sometimes we get in there and we're like, well, when is naturally, for me, I'm naturally more creative in the mornings. And so setting my days up as much as possible. Obviously, again, there's things we need to do. There's a schedules
Yep.
usually like,
There's
but
always exceptions is really what it
as
comes
much
down
as it
to.
is in our control, right? Paying attention to how we work and then creating, that space and that time for that.
Yeah.
There were a few days where I was like, well, I said I was going to work out at this time, but I'm really feeling like creative right now. And
Mhm.
because I have that opportunity, right, I am able to do that. I said, okay, I'm just going to switch it. I'm going to work out that then when I was going to be working, I'm
Yep.
just going to flip flop.
and see
right?
what happens. I think that's so important
Flexible,
to actually play with your routine and decide
play
what's
with it,
working and what's not working, and to
get
realize
curious.
that just like seasons and all this stuff, it can change. But
Yes,
yeah,
it
there's
will
often times
change.
when like my husband and I'll go downstairs to do our workout in the morning, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I just really want to like record a podcast or
Yes.
write something or whatever.
Yeah,
And
it's like burning.
I have to get like really present with myself of like, okay, am I trying to avoid sweating it out for 30 minutes?
There's
Or
that.
do I really feel like that is the better
Yes.
like use of my time consciously?
True. Yeah. No, it's so true. Being honest with ourselves. And that's, I could not love more playing with it and getting curious about it, taking out the judgment of, like you said, oh, now I'm behind, or I didn't do this that I said I was going to do. Just get curious, like, why
Yeah.
didn't that happen today? And
Mhm.
then maybe that's just information to move forward to plan out your next day. And also a plan is not ever set in stone. It's, like
Or a
that's just
guideline.
life. It's a great guideline. I feel like again, it's super helpful to have as a reference and to avoid that decision fatigue where you do show up to your day and you're like, wait, what do I need to do? And if you show up to your day prepared, you have a much better, higher chance of feeling that peace and productivity versus, showing up and going with the flow in
Right. And
quotes.
I can't emphasize how important that is for people like you and I, entrepreneurs that work from home.
Yeah.
If we have no plan, there's like nobody holding us accountable to our
Yes.
stuff. So,
Totally.
I understand if people are like at a job where they work certain hours and things, it
Right.
already kind of produces some boundaries and a little bit of rigidity for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
But when your whole schedule is up to you, you've really got to create and hold those. And it's so
Yes.
important, especially because the outside world loves to think that people like us can just drop things on a dime and,
It's so true.
like,
Yeah.
oh, you make your own schedule. Of course you can be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Volunteer, lunch, coffee. I'm like, wait, hold on.
no. The
No.
no's are as important as the yeses.
100%. Yes.
So tell our listeners where they can find you and everything else that we're talking about on the show today.
Yeah. So I think my website is the best place overall. Just your simplybiglife.com. And then my Instagram, it's funny, I wrote it down because I just changed it.
Oh, that's funny.
Just Sarah M. Dalton. So
Did you have to
because
change it so that you could be verified?
no, I don't even know
Okay.
what that means. Like honestly, I mean, I know what that means, but I'm so not Instagram me, if that's a word.
Okay. I just wasn't sure because I can't get the
No,
verified symbol because my
because
license doesn't match the same name that's on my account.
got it.
So, and
Oh,
I
good
don't
to
feel like
know.
changing it because all my branding is Theresa Lear Levine.
Okay. So I just changed it because I feel like it's and then there's the podcast, the planner, and then just my personal, right? I wanted to kind of have it all be in one spot. As I was like, do I need another Instagram for the planner and this? And that's just no, I don't. And I don't want it. I want to like one-stop shop as much as possible. And then the Peace and Productivity podcast, like you said, you were a guest, and it's just really where
It's a
we
great podcast,
literally
guys.
have conversations like this. Like
Yep.
I'm bringing on experts and productivity, time management, but also like all of the energy, the mindset, so health, nutrition, all of the aspects of who we are, parenting that help us to be our most productive, peaceful selves. So,
Yeah. I love
yes.
that. Definitely check out Sarah's podcast, check out her Instagram, check out her website. I will put all of the details in the show notes. And I think you even sent me over a link for a very cool core values freebie that I'll put in the show
Oh,
notes.
yes. Yes. That's a great place to
So
start.
it will all be there because I know we touched on that, but I know your freebie can go into it a lot further for people who are more interested in exploring their core values. So thank you so much for
Awesome.
that and for all of your just awesome tips and knowledge that you shared with us today. I appreciate you being here, Sarah.
Yeah. Thank you. This was so fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.